Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
Cube Monk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Track your goods with our advanced GPS system. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Insured Nomads provides protection and peace of mind with health insurance, travel insurance, group, or tailored insurance for the globally mobile. Visit us at insurednomads.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
This is Ed Cohen in Southern California, and you're on Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net. Please go and check it out. It's been updated just the other day. Since '03, according to Google Analytics, more than 1.2 million reader page views have occurred on that site. And this past year, about 75,000. And this year to date through March, Google says a little over 15,000 reader page views. And so thank you very much out there. We have a special guest today. You may want to get ready to take notes. This is Chuck Brooks, who's in Washington, D.C. area. Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Okay, I'd like to do a dive into cybersecurity, the threat to the grid, the threat to businesses, the apparent already break-in by whoever is doing this, Russia, China, or Iran, or we don't know. And so where are we going with all this? And if you could encapsulate just a little bit about SolarWinds and the recent election stuff.
Sure. I mean, it's a broad area, but cybersecurity is a broad area. So I'm happy to do so. A lot of factors have contributed to what I think is really an inflection point with cybersecurity. All the things you mentioned, with SolarWinds, with businesses, small businesses being targeted, with ransomware, with even the threat to the grid, all kinds of different things sort of happening simultaneously. So what has happened is basically there's been a transformation in how we work. Most of us are remote right now. And a lot of the hackers have taken advantage of that situation. It created a lot of gaps. It let down security as everyone became their mini office. And it led to a rage of ransomware attacks, particularly against the healthcare industry, but also other small businesses. And another scale, our adversaries, whether they be all the ones you mentioned, including Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, saw this as an opportunity to really test our defenses and go after our critical infrastructure. In the case of North Korea and Iran, it's more actually criminally oriented to steal money. But the big two, China and Russia, have always been sort of testing the edges of our areas. And really, that's what SolarWinds was. It was more of an espionage effort than it was a cybersecurity destruction effort. They were able to get through on a back door through a patch and a system and remain undetected for over a year and infiltrated not only the U.S. government area, but I think it's almost 40% of the Fortune 500 companies and many other governments too. So it shows that this whole thing just shows that we're really in an interconnected world, and the way we used to work and do things is really has to change because our privacy and our financial well-being is so dependent on our digital workspace.
So with President Biden um, taking bold approaches, can't blame him. The time is ripe for a redo of cybersecurity and the grid, and doesn't matter how much it costs, it's going to pay off down the road. But don't you think they ought not to talk about it and just keep it more secret?
Well, it's just an open secrets. I mean, basically, there hasn't been an effort. Don't forget the DHS has really focused on critical infrastructure for the last 5 or 6 years. Unfortunately, it's not an easy task. Is 80% of the critical infrastructure in the United States is owned by the private sector. So that alone is a real challenge. And there wasn't enough resources either way. They're trying to do more with intelligence sharing. I commend the Biden administration for focusing on cybersecurity, and I think they have to. But the DHS has really transformed into the cybersecurity agency. It used to be more focused on counterterrorism, chemical, biological, rad, nuke stuff, which still is a threat, by the way. But now, because of the way the world is dynamically changed into a cyber world, they've had to deal with these consequences. And I think it's going to take more than just some new programs. I think it's going to take really a collaboration between the intelligence community, the private sector, and industry everywhere that is part of the critical infrastructure.
So with the solar winds thing, and based on what you were just talking about, what's your opinion? This is just personal, I know, but rather than malicious intent to use the information that they gained with government and big companies, they just wanted to see if they can do it, number one, and then they were bold enough to say, "Hey, look what we did to you," and nobody was what to do. So, do you think they're going to use it to detriment, or because that's like a declaration of war?
In a sense, though, but if you look at the global landscape and you look at who's doing what, no surprises there. I mean, Russia and China have been continually at it, particularly China, who's invested basically their military resources into it. There's a little difference between Russia and China, and one is that China is really got the long-term view. They've been collecting data, including all our clearances when they stole all the OPM ones. They've attacked pretty much most of the Beltway bandit companies dealing with DoD, and they've stolen a lot of our plans and stuff, including hypersonic. Russia is a little bit looser. There's a group of people that are also more interested in financial gain. It's not so much ideological. Is it causing some issues? Yes, but these people sort of freelance under the wink of the government. So these groups, they operate and they're in the interest of obviously the adversaries of the United States. So, but they're not. Their mission is a little bit different, and I think a lot of times they just want to do what you just said: test us, and if they can, infiltrate and get information. But more often, they do it for financial reasons. On the Russian side, so I think there's a and particularly also just test other areas like Ukraine and others where they've done actually assaults on critical infrastructure and power. But you're right. Solar winds was a big test, and the fact is there's so many elements to it. It's supply chain issues. It's a cybersecurity hygiene. They initially got in through a bad password. SolarWinds 123. that the SolarWinds is now blaming on an intern, which is sort of ridiculous. But this is not an easy game. Cybersecurity is a very sophisticated world. There's so many elements to it, and they're now with the advent of artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies, and 5G, which allows for faster bandwidth. They've done a lot of automation now of these attacks, and that's where the real danger is.
Interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let's go into prevention, which is what you've been talking about for years now, and really double down with your appointment as a Forbes thought leader and some of this other stuff that you're doing is fascinating, Chuck. Paul, why don't you flip up that graphic and let's take a look at it. And Chuck, perhaps you could do a deep dive on what we're going to look at here, cybersecurity, and what it means.
Right. Yeah, this was from a Forbes article I wrote just recently, actually. And there's all kinds of philosophies about how to protect yourself, and it goes through many phases. And the first one, of course, was defense in depth. You have to have different layers, alert systems, know where your assets are, and try and protect the endpoints, etc. The second one was security by design. Is that for unfortunately, most of the IT is built on legacy systems, so it's difficult to do security by design, rather. But now it's essential, and particularly with new targeted critical infrastructure, particularly in power and other things and operating systems. So that's an important element. And the third one was zero trust, is that you just don't trust anything, and you have to have identity management, know who, privilege access, continually don't let anything into your system. And my article is not really to say that any one of these is better than the other, but we need to do all three. And that's what it really comes down to. Cybersecurity is a holistic approach. You need to have a strategy depending whether you're a small business, a large business, a consumer, or not for profit. Everyone is a little different upon what their needs are. And you have to determine up front what you need to protect, what your assets are. And then you have to look at what your gaps are, what the threats are, and then look at what you need to do. It may be just simply putting in a stronger firewall or encrypting your data, but there's a lot of things that you can do. And I think the mistake is that no one size fits all, and every company needs to really focus on the implications. What happens if they do get hacked? They have an incident response. Is there really key data protected and it's separated from the other data? There's so many different elements to this, but I think it really comes down to really understanding that you need a framework and a strategy up front.
So, for instance, let's just talk about water and food supply, with water in particular. So in Southern California here, if you think back to the old movies, Chinatown and some of the others about the establishment of LA Metro out of the desert area of San Fernando Valley and transmitting the water supply from the Colorado River, and as it drains down from the Sierra Nevada mountains. And that's, to this day, it's still going on. It's amazing that there's enough water. But so how do you think that can be security by design to protect the water supply?
Well, that really, it's a good question. The water supply was attacked during the recent Super Bowl in Florida. They caught the person trying to infiltrate chemicals into the system. So I think when you look at anything dealing with any kind of supply chain and infrastructure, you have to look at what you need to secure. And just like with anything else, water it's like data. You need to protect that water, which is the data coming through, and you need to have sensors. You need to have sensors to show any anomalies of anyone trying to disrupt it. You need to have the physical as well as the cyber. You need to have cameras and outside sensors if anyone tries to do physical damage, because that has also happened in some attacks. And then you need to monitor it. You have to keep what is the optimal flows, what is supposed to be going in there, where is it, is anything being reallocated, or is there anything being done with the chemistries? And it really is like operating a command center, looking at all those elements and looking at who you're going to assign to protect each element, whether you're going to do it mostly through technology, whether you're going to have people backing it up. And then you have to look at, how you're going to implement it and design it and make sure that it flows the right way. And this is really an integral part of what is smart cities, because smart cities are really infrastructure, which is water and energy, transportation and security, health, and they're all now being linked. They're linked in central computers, linked on the internet. They work with each other. The lights are automated. So, it's really a question of really automation and protecting the automation.
Interesting. Now, the food supply and the electrical grid, this is, I can't imagine anything more complex and more s- dispersed
Yes.
than this stuff.
Yeah.
Yet it's all sort of connected, isn't it?
It is connected. I mean, there are power generators all over, but they're connected, by over the internet sometimes, and sometimes through SCADA systems or operating systems that are separate. But there's now a mix between these IT systems and these OT systems that make everything vulnerable. And you mentioned the grid. And the grid was really built mostly in the 70s and 80s, even some of it before that. And so you have all different kinds of products. Generators, linkage, and it is all over the place. So it's very difficult to protect. So you really have to look at protecting every component and maybe separating every component, which is not an easy task. And the same with any kind of critical infrastructure. You need to really be able to determine where the vulnerabilities are first and how your attacker is going to do it. And I think of all things, the scariest is the grid, because if power goes out, we're all in trouble. And it's not just I think a cyber threat, which is a big threat. It's also a threat, a physical threat, from a solar flare or EMP attack or something like that. So I think we need to.
Or how about a snowstorm?
Or a snowstorm, yes.
that
Yeah,
is so weird that Houston area would, all of Texas, I guess.
they weren't expecting an ice storm. It's just they weren't built for it. And I think that's really, you have to look at weatherizing your outside products too, or they call it ruggedizing in cybersecurity for the environment, or when you're going to deploy in the military. It could be sand, it could be other things too. But I think that's the world we live in. You have to look at every potential risk element out there and protect against those risk elements, because consequences are too big. It's really, really all about risk management.
So how can this be taught differently? Does it have to wait for graduate school, or can it be taught in shop, in like trade school?
I'm a big proponent of trade school, and I think too much of it. I'm a big proponent of liberal arts and humanities too. I think they all have a real purpose in society, but I think we've gone away too much into the servicing end of it and too little into the trade part, and given up a lot of the manufacturing capabilities. And I think we need to get back to the nuts and bolts and the engineering aspects and train more people, particularly women in STEM. Really develop those areas and invest in them, because the next generation of technologies coming online are all going to be artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnologies. It's going to change the way we work. And if we don't develop this kind of scientific expertise, we're really way behind. And I know that China is investing heavily in this.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic, because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
So one of the things that you're doing is as an adjunct professor at George Washington, right?
Georgetown.
Yeah, Georgetown. Thank you. So what is it that you're teaching?
I'm actually in two separate programs. One is intelligence, applied intelligence, and the second one is cybersecurity risk management. And the courses I teach are homeland security technologies. And one I actually just designed last year, and I've been teaching it now for 6 semesters. It's called Disruptive Technologies and Organizational Management, where I really cover all the different aspects of the emerging technologies coming online, and work with my students to really look how they work with that in industry, not just from a business sense, well, that's part of it, but also a marketing sense and a technological sense and a cybersecurity sense, because you're talking about the integration of a lot of these technologies. And that's really exciting, because I see you mentioned before, where the hope is. There are a lot of young minds out there that have they're growing up in a technology society already. And I think they can adapt quickly to it. A lot of the people are the best ones in cybersecurity are gamers. They're just natural at it. So I think we really need to cultivate people in all aspects of education. And Georgetown is really sort of done a outreach in some of these areas. I know I worked on a blockchain program with them too, and it's exciting to be part of it, because you see the next generation really of leaders coming out of it.
So it says here at the top of the page, we're looking at Masters in Applied Intelligence.
Yes, that's one of the one of the programs I'm in, and a lot of those people come out of a government or working government right now, and they're looking at a career in intelligence community, Department of Defense, Homeland Security, primarily, where they're looking at real-world intelligence situations, understanding the technologies, the threats, etc., and particularly cybersecurity. And the other one is cybersecurity risk management, the other program I'm in, which is more focused directly on cybersecurity, elements of information technology and security and approaches. So they're two different programs, but they're really complementary.
Well, great. Okay, Chuck, this has really been a master's degree conversation from you the past 30 minutes. I really appreciate your time. There's so much more and so much deeper we could get, but I think we ought to cut this off and welcome you back to another Global TV talk show.
I'm always happy to come on, and really enjoy the program.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Chuck Brooks in Washington. And what website can they find you at?
I think the easiest two are my LinkedIn page. You can find me there. I'm usually at the top. I have nearly 70,000 followers. And then my Twitter, which is at Chuck D. Brooks. At Chuck D. Brooks. Now, I use both those accounts pretty regularly now. And I also communicate through them. So anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
So thanks very much, Chuck. Be well.
You too.
And please come back in May or June. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thanks.
Okay. Ciao.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.